Hello. Nice to be back. I hope you're all doing well. Just before I start, I wanted to say that I'm a bit sorry that I haven't been managed to fix the issues with the camera. It is still a bit blurry. I will work on it in the next week and then try and figure out how to improve this. But yeah, hopefully just following what I say would make it clear enough. And yeah, so first announcement, I guess, is that now the V1.5 is out of beta, and it is now a mainline firmware, so I will show you how to update. But first, I'd like to go a bit through the features. There's been a lot of bug fixes. I did a little bit of safety on some stuff. And also, we've been actually quite busy working out some ways to automate calibration of the Faderpunk that would allow us to make a lot more. So that is now done, and it's a very good thing, and we're very happy about this. And yeah, and a lot of feature, the main one being able to save and load layouts and setup. So basically when you go in the configurator, you are able to save the entire configuration of the device. That being said, it only covers the app layout, all the parameters of the apps and the parameters, like the main settings, but it doesn't save all of the scene information. We're working on this, but it's quite a bit undertaking, so it will take probably quite a bit more before we get there. Yeah, new apps, clock divider, and a panner, auto panner, but we'll get there much later. Yeah, and yeah, a bunch of little stuff like fixing some little things here and there. Work on the configurator and so on. So there will be a lot more updates coming up in the future, but yeah, we're just we take it as fast as we can, but we want things to be done well. So that means also the V1.6 beta is gonna come out soon. I'm still gonna try out a few things this weekend and early next week, and hopefully mid next week we can put it up online and see if you find us bugs. So yeah, one thing, an update means that we need to update the device. That is very easy. You disconnect your device and then reconnect it holding the shift button. Here, then the device doesn't do anything. However, it should appear as a storage device. So then you just drag and drop the file, and then hopefully after a little bit it copies it, and then just a minute, here it is, then it restarts, and now it is updated. If it is not updated, you will receive a message connecting to the configurator. This is a breaking update regarding the configurator to device connection. So it will force you to update to be able to continue using the configurator. However, it doesn't break any of the parameters in the apps or anything. So yeah. Yeah, so as I started doing last week, I'd like to continue going through the apps. And one next in the list, so we did 3 of them last week. So control, DLFO, and the AD envelope. And the next one in the list is the random CC and CV. We also had a request from Donald Duck, who's in the chat, I see, to do some stuff about modulation of filters in the, especially in MIDI, because it's fairly easy to do with CV. But when it comes to MIDI, it's not super easy and super straightforward to do. And the Faderpunk actually has been designed to actually allow doing this stuff fairly easily. So I will get there. Yeah, so let's load a random CC CV app. Let's disconnect all of this first. Let's do a modular reset, which is always super handy, as they say. Here it is. Okay, so let's go in the app. Where is it? It's here. It's green. And here it is. So it is loaded here. The app has a bunch of parameters. So either it can output bipolar, CV, or and also can output some MIDI CCs. This allows to map some stuff to MIDI CC and do some random modulation. Like most of the apps, there is an attenuator that allows to attenuate the volume. The bipolar, I'll show you here. So the parameters are here. So the bipolar parameter allows you to center also in CC where does the randomness actually is attenuated. So yeah, maybe I can show you. Let's map it to a parameter in Bitwig. Let's go into the mixer. I don't think I'll do much with Bitwig today. Yeah, so it is currently clocked to the main clock, so I need to start the clock for the modulation to start. So now you see it's actually unipolar, so it will stay mostly on the bottom, and if I attenuate, it will actually attenuate to the minimum, to the complete left, which is not great for panning. So if you then make it bipolar and save, then now you see this move back to the middle. So if you increase modulation, then it is now centered around the 0 of the panning. We can see how we can use this for, let's put some sound from the modular. Let's reset this. Up. Okay, so now we have some maybe let's remove the effects. My encoder is a bit broken. Yeah, so now you hear the triangle wave going into the CDVCA. Screen is frozen again. Yeah, let me fix this again. These things are okay. Okay, now it should be working. Yeah, at least I see it working on my screen. Okay, so what I was saying, let's modulate some stuff into the modular. We have now sine wave or triangle in there, and then so here it is. Bipolar modulation. You have, as always, shift plus the fader is an attenuator, like in most of the apps. The fader works like with the LFO, so it will be the speed. By default, it is synced to the tempo, so if I stop the internal clock, it stops. However, if I press shift and hold this for long, then now it is actually free running. So whether I start the clock or not, it will not do anything. It will not follow the clock, so you can do some unsynced modulation. So as Donado asked, we can also send it to some MIDI CC, and that means that we can control hardware devices. Let's. Am I getting any sound here? Okay. So now we get this, and I think that, if I remember correctly, we need to have this here on. So basically, it's just a matter of going into your manual for your device, and let's see for the microfreak. Okay, we go here, then we see, let's look at the parameter that you want to adjust. So here the cutoff is CC23. I know I set my microfreak to channel 1 in its parameters, and then when I go here, I just set it to the parameter that I want to affect, and then just activate it. And if I increase the attenuation, then now I have the filter that is being modulated by MIDI. So yeah, that's a nice little utility to have. One of the things with CC modulation is that it's quite difficult to create offsets. So here I would have the parameter, the random generator just randomly is outputting some values. However, I can't then, if you see here, if I press, I don't really have control of the filter. It will always jump back to where the MIDI CC is being sent, which is a bit annoying. But there is a workaround actually with the Faderpunk that is quite nice, is to actually not use directly the output of the random generator, but you use the CV to MIDI. And the CV to MIDI does, well, CV to MIDI conversion. And if you connect the output here, let's then set, so let's set this one to a channel that is, whatever, something that is not the microfreak. So now, doesn't do anything anymore. But if I take this one, well, it is already set to 23, which is nice. And then I can use here, if I don't send any modulation, this is just a direct control. But you can add some modulation to it. So then, instead of using the control on the front panel, you use the one on the Faderpunk. And you have full control over your filter and the amount of modulation that you want to send to it. That allows you to still do your filter sweeps and so on. So yeah. So for the random CCCV, I think that's mostly it. We'll go to the big one now. The biggest app that we have, which is the sequencer. There's quite a lot to do with it. So let's delete all of this. Then put the sequencer here. And here it is. So now you hear it triggering there, but we'll go to the modular for now. My modular doesn't have an envelope, so I'll add one here as well. So then I can trigger it directly with the sequencer. Let's have some contrast. We're on the pink sequencer now. And yeah, so the sequencer app, it has actually 4 sequences in it. Each of them have 16 steps. And they output CV and MIDI notes at the same time. And you have control over the gate pattern by pressing the buttons, the notes, I'll show you this. Maybe you can actually patch something. So let's do this. We're using the second one here. Up. Let's have the envelope being triggered by here. Look, you see that the envelope is being triggered. Let's trigger output this to the filter. And so there are 2 pageless per sequences. And yeah, so there are many things that are controllable. So the gate length, so if I put this into... Now it's in ASR mode. So if I... that's the length of the sequence, so I can shorten it. Now the length of the note is being controlled here. The next fader controls the octave, so you can offset. No, it is not possible to use the 16 faders for the 16 steps because the, currently, I mean, let's see if we actually go in this direction, but the faders and buttons and tracks are always going to be assigned to one app. So there was this question of being able to kind of expand this and take control over all of the parameters of one app by expanding. Yeah, for now, I didn't want the sequencer to take the entire unit. It's already quite big. It's taking 8 channels. So I decided to make it 8 channels and make multiple pageless. However, it is not that difficult to make one that would be taking the entire device. I think it would be a bit underutilizing the Faderpunk, but that's possible. Maybe we can do this next later. But yeah, for now, no, it's not really possible. As with all of the apps, one can also save the sequences. If I save this and yeah, so you can control here, set the step length, the number of steps. That's the length of the gate. Then you can control the octave shift, so that allows you to set the octave higher or lower. That also affects the MIDI notes. So if you're controlling a synthesizer, you will be able to offset it like this, because usually the center note is not always the same with a MIDI note, so it's good to be able to do this. Then the next one is the sequence range, so you might want to just limit it to 1 octave, depending on what you want to do. So let's make a long sequence. Now it's just restricted to 1 octave, but if you increase this, now it's 2 octaves, 3, 4, and then maximum is 5. It's easier to, well, then you get the whole range of the fader to control your notes. It makes it a little bit easier to create your sequences. And yeah, and then the last control, this one controls the speed, so you can make it run faster or slower. And all of these parameters are independent from like depending on the sequencer. So if I have this sequencer, for example, now it is actually running at a different step than the first one. So this one is controlling the microfreak. Let's So yeah, and then I can change the speed of close this one, for example, by doing this. So yeah, so now you have multiple sequences running at the same time. Yeah, so as we were discussing on the Discord, there is no direct CC control with the sequencer. However, you can combine apps by doing internal patching. Like for example, here I'm triggering an envelope directly from the sequencer back into the Faderpunk. So then I can have an envelope in my modular system. So if you want to control anything with that is MIDI and you want to control it with CV, the secret is always to use the CV to MIDI app. So let's put it back to controlling the filter of here, so of the microfreak. So now I have control of the filter here. So it is controlled by this sequencer. So I just have 4 nodes, and let's take the last sequencer, the white one, and connect this here. Let's increase the range to maximum. Yeah, now you have control over the filter with the sequencer in MIDI. And if you want to attenuate the amount of modulation, you can just do the shift and fader as always. And you can do some nice effects by playing around with the speed of one sequencer compared to the other. But it can also be, I made it slower, but I can also make it at the same speed. So here the 2 sequences are also 8 steps, but nothing stops you from making one shorter than the other. For example, now it is 5 steps, so it's going to phase out with the melodic sequence, that is 8 here. Can you trigger the sound 8 times for 8 steps instead of 1 note, so each step is more audible? I'm not sure what you mean by this. So now the 2 sequences are running at the same speed. Now this time it's running at twice the speed as the other one, so you get these animations. So yeah, that's how you would modulate parameters inside the in a MIDI device. However, that doesn't. You can also modulate multiple parameters. So let's say, what does this do? Okay, the wave is CC10. Let's go here. Let's add another CV to MIDI. Okay. Then the second one, we said that's 10. And now let's use the last. It gets really crazy and a bit complex, but you know, that's what it's for as well. I think this needs a little bit of reverb, a bit of delay. So yeah. So now I'm modulating this parameter. It's not reflected here. Oh, it is kind of. And I'm modulating the filter as well and playing the melody all at the same time from the Faderpunk using a couple of CV to MIDI converters. And yeah, so yeah, that's basically the sequencer in itself. Yeah, one thing, I think that's more or less it. Do you have any questions about the sequencer? Do you? Okay, well, if there is no more questions, I mean, you can ask questions later. It's fine. I can come back to things. So, here are some of my favorite apps. The Turing Machine, which is basically, for the people that are not familiar with it, it's quite a staple of the modular world. It's a very classic circuit. And yeah, so there are many versions of it, and now we also made our own in the Faderpunk. So I will be loading it here. It runs off the internal clock. Ah, here it is. Let's look at this. So Turing Machine is a in short, that would be a random looping sequencer. So there are ways the fader would control the randomness, but it works in a funny way because it's actually flipping bits and using a DAC and blah blah blah. What this means is that at the minimum, you are at 0 probability that the bits are going to be flipped. So that means that your sequence is looping. That's here. So now it's always the same. If I put it in the middle, there's a 50-50 chance that it would loop. So now it's completely random. But if I put it at the maximum, the bits are always going to flip. That means that it's actually doubling the length of your sequence. It's going to play it once in one order and then in the reverse order and then back and forth. Okay. So the nice thing with this app is that it's it's a very fast way to actually create some melodic patterns without having to think too much. One of my favorite ways to use it is actually with DAW. Let me stop this. Yep. Let's go to Bitwig. I think actually my Faderpunk is set to internal clock, so let's sync it to Bitwig. So now I've changed the clock source, and let's play with the microfreak. So now if I start the clock, maybe let's remove the MIDI to CV, the CV to MIDI. Yeah. So you hear now this is making this nice little sequence, so we can record it. So then I would stop recording and then use this. That gives us a nice little sequence, and then I can start editing here, so and making my phrases. Move things around. So yeah, and then you get your funky stuff like this. That's a very fast way to actually get some inspiration and start making some nice little melodies. The sequencer is each of the sequences are 16 steps length, maximum length. It's just that there are 2 pages per sequences, so that you are able to access all of the 16 steps. But yeah, I mean, it's these are trade-offs, like there's always. I mean, we could use the whole interface to make a sequencer, but then the Faderpunk would just be a sequencer in this use case. We can do it. Actually, usually people tend to complain a bit more that the sequencer is too big, and they want smaller solutions to do sequencing, like the Turing machine. But yeah. So continue with the Turing machine. Let's stop this sequence and go back to what the Faderpunk is generating. Maybe we can kill the effects, so that's a bit more obvious. So yeah, you can change the speed by holding here. And as with all of the apps, you can record the sequences. But that's actually something that is quite new, because I don't think there is any other solution of Turing machines that actually are enabling saving the sequences. Yeah, so I mean I can show you now. Okay. Yeah, that's the limitations of a having an interface that is so multifunctional. There's always some issues, especially with the saving and recalling of parameters. There's always some situations where the faders are not going to be in the right position. We try to make the LED feedback as clear as possible, but it's not always that simple. But yeah, I think there's some limitations to the form factor and the multifunctionality of the device that make things not always perfect in one direction or the other. But yeah, we're trying our best to make it nice. Yeah, but we don't have motorized faders. That would be a solution. However, when I did some short calculation when we were designing this thing, that would have meant that the device would have been probably around like 2,500 to 3,000 euros. So that was a bit unrealistic. Also, when you use motorized faders, it uses a lot of power. So then you need, it would not be following the USB 2 standards. So you need to have a battery or some supercapacitors. It makes it a lot more complex. Then it causes issues with the motors to pass all of the electromagnetic. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, triple. It's like 5 times the price. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's a difficult thing to do. But yeah, I mean there are ways to kind of do it, like touch controls. But I'm not a big fan of this. Or having a display, but that's something that we decided early not to do. As I explained in the previous stream, the idea of this device is to actually limit in a way what you can edit on it. Not being able to change the apps and everything. It's a way that we want to create this workflow where people create their own instruments and then have to stick with it, because if you always have the option to change things, then you don't. It doesn't force you to stick with things too much. So I think it's nice to have a little bit of commitment, and that's something that we wanted to create. Yeah. Yeah, the Turing machine, to go back to it. So you saw that it can create nodes. But you can also configure it to send CCs. So let's do the same. It was 23, I think. So now I've set it to control the filter cutoff. And at the same time, it would be sending the same CV. So you can control 2 filters, for example. Yeah, I mean, the choices that you make creating a device is, I mean, there are lots of, sometimes the choices make themselves. Sorry, the camera is stuck again. Well, the choices make themselves in the sense that, there are price restrictions. I mean, the motorized faders, we explode it because it's a cool thing and it would be nice to have and so on. But when you start seeing the prices and how you like the sourcing and the amount of investment that it represents for us as well, just to be able to make 100 of these, then it becomes just completely unachievable, and we just can't afford to do it. Same thing, we have, I've samples of buttons with displays in them, but one button is, wholesale would be like $30 to get, and we have 18 buttons there, so it would be like insane price, So we try to make things as nice as possible. We try to do our best, but most of the time the limitations are budget and also and then you have to decide also what you are actually trying to do. So it's very important, in my opinion, at least when you design an instrument, to think about what you're trying to achieve and really think of a workflow using this device. That was the idea behind not having the display. It's like, okay, so we want people to use this as an instrument and not constantly have the opportunity to change things on it too much. So it's, we wanted to create some sort of commitment. Yeah, there are some motorized faders in your rack as well. Their machine does this as well. But again, it's with super capacitors. They only have 4 with no buttons. It's just the faders that connect to another device, and 4 faders is €500 for the module. So it's a lot of money for. Functionality doesn't really increase so much. And generally, like motorized faders or knobs and so on are very uncommon. So it's funny to have so much request to have these and be like, oh yeah, it doesn't have that, blah blah blah. But I don't know, somehow like for the last few decades, there hasn't been any synthesizers with motorized faders, and very very few MIDI controllers. And it hasn't really been so much of an issue. So, I guess we can live without them for the time being, Anyways, the next app after the Turing machine, there is the Turing Plus. Okay, so this one requires a little bit of explanation. So let's load it up. Let's clear this up. You know what? I will do 2 apps at the same time, because the next one is the Euclidean sequencer, and I think they actually combine very, very nicely. So let's add the Turing Plus. That is a 2-channel app. Okay, and have the Euclidean sequencer up. And I will start with the Eurorack system. So again, I'm going to load myself an envelope. So here it is. So the Euclidean sequencer has 2 outputs. One of them is triggering. Well, both of them are triggering actually. There is the direct out that creates the rhythm. So let's connect this here. Let's have a square wave instead for a change. That's not a square wave, that's a square wave. So yeah, it creates rhythm. For the people that are not familiar with Euclidean sequences, basically that algorithmic rhythm sequences that use math to create rhythms. We already have a module that does this very, very well, has CV inputs and so on. Actually, I can show you some of the sequences. So if you see let's concentrate on the yellow sequence here. So you have two numbers. You have the length that can be here between 0 and 16, 1 and 32. And then you have the number of beats that you want to have in the sequence. And from these two numbers, it derivates a sequence. So if I clock this, that's going too fast. Yep. Let's say this is 6 ppqn. Up. Up. Okay. Don't know why it went back to internal. Okay. So I'm going to be triggering the envelope from here. So yeah, depending on the two numbers, they create different rhythms. And the idea is to spread the number of bits as evenly as possible across the whole sequence. So we have here the same, but with faders. So the first fader is the length of the rhythm. So if I put it at maximum, it would be 16. And then this one would control the number of beats. So if I put it at maximum, it's at every steps. At the minimum, it's nothing. Then now we have kind of rhythms that move around, which is quite nice. And we have an accessory, an auxiliary output here, which in this case is every time the sequence ends. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the next app, which is the Turing Plus. So it's like the previous app, but with a trigger input instead. So here I'm going to connect the end of cycle of the rhythm into the Turing machine. So now every time the Euclidean rhythm finishes the cycle, it will change the note. So this will be so that allows you to create some very nice sequences. Patching to get some nicer sound. So yeah. Okay. and now I'm going to show you a little bit how to use this for MIDI. So okay, let's stop this. So there is a few things to know here. So Euclidean sequencer outputs MIDI notes. So it outputs two MIDI notes, one for the main out and one for the other one. So that actually makes it quite nice to trigger two different sounds. The Turing also outputs MIDI notes every time it receives a gate. And yeah, so you can't actually do directly this kind of patching in MIDI. But yeah, so let's listen to what the channel of the Euclidean sequencer. Let's yeah. There's a node that is stuck, but it doesn't matter. So yeah, and so Turing Plus would be outputting a note every time it receives a trigger. So then you can create these nonlinear patterns. To change the length of the sequence, it's like on the first one, you press Shift and you press here the button a certain number of times to have a different length. So for example, let's say 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can create some different rhythms. In the Turing Plus, you have two faders. So the first one controls the probability, and the second one controls the amplitude of the sequence. What you can create with these techniques when you combine multiple instruments, you can get some very nice things. So for example, let's just open the filter here. Let's let this drone. Let's tune it. So yeah, so you can create your sequences this way and do some funky stuff. Okay. Another thing that is quite nice and is usually the usage for for Euclidean sequences is to trigger drums. So let's do it in Bitwig. So let's have this here. Okay, with channel 2, and we're sending MIDI node 31 and 33. Okay, let's create ourselves a track. And then let's add some drums. Now, 808 heavyweight, that sounds good. Okay, and then you set here the input being MIDI coming from Faderpunk, channel 2. Okay. Then listen. And then we should have some notes being triggered. Channel 5. Okay, we need to set this to, I think it's like somewhere there. It's sending channel 2, okay. We set channel 5, okay. Okay, should go 3 notes down. Okay, let's set a snare as well, so we can put the snare and 38. So now I have one channel, or the main output triggering the kick here, and the auxiliary triggering the snare. There are 2 modes for the auxiliary output, so either it's an alternate, so it would play when the first one doesn't play, or as I showed before, an end of cycle. So the alternate is actually really nice for triggering hi-hats. So if I do it here, so 39 and 40. So then it becomes the feel, like the amount of beats controls the amount of openings. The faders also have clip functions, so I can show you in the manual here. The first one is a rotation. So it's difficult to tell here, but if I add, let's just add a kick. Yeah. This would shift the, so if we just have one opening to make it more obvious. the second is a probability. It's the probability that the first one would trigger. So if I put this at max, now it's always triggering, and if I decrease this, then we start having some opening, some hi-hats open, being triggered as well. So yeah, and nothing stops you from having a bunch of them, so we can actually add some more Euclidean sequences. Envelope we don't need, Turing machine we don't need. Let's just add another one. So we said 5, and then let's have the nodes. It was 38 for the kick, I think. The snare was 38. Okay, and what? Let's finish up by adding a Turing machine that would play. The I don't know why it's kind of stuck. Let me restart it. So yeah, here it is. Okay, so I hope I answered your questions about modulating filters with the Faderpunk, and that it made it more clear how to use some of the apps, both in MIDI and in CV. So yeah, I think it's going to be time for me to go home. I wish you all a very nice weekend, and I will do this again next week, same time, Friday, from 4 until 5 o'clock p.m. And yeah, I hope to see you there, and have a nice weekend. Bye bye.